Why now?
And you should switch those screens.
Why?
So that I can see what's going on too on this one. Because I can't see shit with that microphone right there. You're not used to using all this, are you? And yes, you're live. By the way.
Okay. Well, first we gotta do our checks to make sure everything's broadcasting right. So I
Looks fine to me.
So I need somebody on the other end, somewhere on the phone, something.
I'm looking right now. Hold on. Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Sounds like it works to me.
So I just wanted to check and see if, as long as the audio and everything's running right.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hardly hear me, can you?
I have the volume down.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't echo.
Okay.
I think you probably get a better response from people on Facebook, maybe.
Where do you? All right. So for anybody who don't know me right now, I'm known for the Mystical Atma, also by Michael. I also run a gamer tag by the name Hellstorm. But most of you know me for tarot card readings, preaching forgiveness and to let go and peace and prosperity, law of attraction, and many different things of that nature. Tonight, we're going to take it in a little bit of a different direction. You know, with everything going on around the world, coronavirus, Black Lives Matter, the brutality brought on by our trusted police departments. And just wanted to get a few of y'all's views, what you think about all the issues going on as well. And I am also joined by the Fluffy Raven Twitch streamer tonight. So we're just going to be discussing, you know, our views and our opinions. Now, this is not something we're saying is something everybody has to believe or get behind, but this is how we feel and what we see going on around us as well. So I want to start off with the biggest thing at hand right now. And you probably guessed it by my title, the Black Lives Movement. Everywhere you look, on your social medias, your Facebook, your news channel, everything is preaching racism. Um, but I go out in the streets every day. I work alongside many ethnic races. I'm in and out of different places, and I'm really just wondering, where is all this racism and all this hate that the news is telling us is everywhere?
Um, Hi guys. Like he said, my name is the Fluffy Raven, aka Charles. I also work with the general public a lot, with many different ethnic backgrounds. I'm also a Twitch streamer, admittedly kind of low at the moment. But I do talk to a lot of people that come in and out of my channels. Um, and I'm kind of wondering the same thing because I don't see it on a normal, regular, everyday basis. Not to the point that the media is trying to portray it to be. So that's kind of where I'm at as well. Yes, I do see some racism here and there, it's little, side comments and things like that. But for the most part, if anything, it's lower than what it has been in the last 10 years. To me, it just seems like it's a lot higher because the media is shoving it down your throat, honestly. You can't go on any social media platform, any news channel, any radio station, really, without hearing about it. Um, and I believe the way they describe it is systematic targeting racism.
Yes.
Um, I have a hard time believing that any one group is. I mean, of course, you're gonna have people out there that are extremist, um, that are just hateful, mean people. And we're not talking about those people here. We're talking about the general public.
And I couldn't agree more there. So, if the racism isn't so widespread as the media would have you believe it, uh, that kind of leaves me with the question after that is, what has stirred this up so badly? You know, I see it on the news and I read about it as well. Police departments getting defunded, people attacking police as far as brutality. And then I hear Black Lives Matter, as if police brutality only happens to African Americans, or that white privilege is thrown in all of our faces all the time. And I'm still thinking, I'm like, where do you see white privilege? You know, I remember going to a school, and this kind of brings back to the racism thing. I remember going to a school where they still had the water fountains on each side of the hall because that school used to be segregated. And I look back now to how far back then we really were, and I see a world of difference. People of all races coming together, people of all races holding hands, talking in relationships. Um, Back when I was a child, that was almost frowned upon by everybody. You didn't date outside your race, and now it's acceptable and it's married, and you know, there's so much that we have come from. And a lot of my things is that past reminds us of some pain, But it's also tells a story of where we came from and how far we've come together as a human race. And I kind of droned on a little bit there, a little bit forgot the point that I was trying to make at that time. But
well, I think the point of this kind of is to have a place to talk about this where people aren't jumping down your throat, where people aren't shoving their raw opinions down your throat, like the media kind of. But to have an open and free discussion about what you see, what you believe, what you hear for the everyday common people. And I think that's really important to have. I would love it if we could get that kind of discussion really going on this channel as we go forward.
Most definitely, guys. If y'all want to say your opinions or anything you feel or want to discuss while we're talking about this major issue at hand, feel free to throw it down in the comments, and we're going to interact with you as well and discuss viewpoints on this. We also got a little bit of statistics.
Yes.
What he said. And we're going to read some of that off as well. And maybe we can open some eyes out there as well. Because my biggest thing, when I'm told that the police is targeting people of African descent, I'm like, how? Tell me the difference. Tell me where. And they're like, well, you don't see it because you're white. You're white privileged. And I just kind of laugh and smile. I said, where am I privileged? And then I have to turn around and ask them. I was like, one, you don't know me. You don't know what you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what kind of life I've lived and what privileges I've been given, or I have now. Many people don't know. And I've seen the statistics, the little video about raise your hand if you grew up in a household without a father, take one step forward.
Yeah, that was a big thing a few years ago.
Yeah, if you grew up in a broken home, take one step forward, and the white person is the one standing back there in the back. But, not every white person, not every black person grew up that way or went through that kind of stuff or given white privilege or black privilege. That's a saying you don't hear.
No.
But it's very true as well. I grew up without a father in the home. We grew up struggling on the street, bouncing from house to house, never knowing what house or where I was even going to lay my head. And on the media, it's posted as that's only a statistic for an African American that grows up that way. My family could never afford to send me to college. So where is my white privilege that everybody throws in my face that I've had?
Well, I know from personal experience, me myself, I've never really had any white privilege. I'm about as white as it gets. You cannot mistake me for any other ethnic race. You can't. I mean, Mike here, he could be mistaken for Latino or Mexican. But you can't really mistake me at all. I look as white as as can be. In elementary school, I went to a school where there were predominantly African American people. There was about literally white, 5, maybe 6 white people in the entire school, and all of which were related to me. Again, back in that time frame, we still saw a lot of the remnants of African American struggle, and it's still around. I'm not saying it's not, but you can still see the remnants of segregation everywhere. I recall a particular woman I used to hang out with at that time. I remember going to her house and her family telling me that she couldn't hang out with me because I was white.
Yeah, I remember that as a kid.
That was a big thing. I grew up a lot of the same way, in a broken home, struggling. My parents didn't have the money to send me to college or anything. I had to fight for that. I had to work my way through it myself. None of that was ever handed to me, ever. I pay all of my own bills, always have. So again, I ask you, where is this white privilege that you say all white people have?
Yeah, there was no mommy saying, "Here, baby, here's a brand new car on your 16th birthday to drive off and own."
Well, and to be fair, I'm not saying that there isn't white privilege. I'm not saying that, because some people very obviously have privileges. What I'm saying, though, is it's not just white people. I have met during my lifetime quite a few African American people who were well more privileged than myself. Dramatically more, actually. But that's not the point. The point is I don't see this systematic racism that they're trying to say is out there.
Right, and I don't see it either. So if it's not racism, then why are the police brutality cases going up from the past 5 years? Now this is an overall versus overall with black and white together. The police brutalities hasn't declined. And I also have some statistics
Well, they kind of have declined a little bit.
While
but
we're
that's kind of
reading
the
it,
point. Is actually, I want to point that out, because you kind of misspoke there for a minute. The media would have you believe that it hasn't declined.
Right, the media.
The media will tell you that racism, especially against African American people, is worse than it has been in a generation. But that's simply not true. It's a narrative. They're trying to fit a narrative. They're trying to use these things happening to push a political point, an agenda, is what it is. And they're shoving it down your face, down your throat, every chance they get.
Now, I want to take a moment in that. And the whole saying, implies if you don't stand behind Black Lives Matters, then you're labeled a racist. But if you don't agree with their agenda, then you're labeled a racist. If you do agree, then the other side, you're labeled a traitor, or you're labeled a sellout if you don't agree. Sellout, and there's so many different things that for one goes against everything that they supposedly stand for in itself. You're fighting for freedom, you're fighting for civil rights, you're fighting to be, and if we're being oppressed on just our decision on where we stand, bullied into standing behind a name that you may not agree with, that's an oppression in itself.
Right. I feel like we're jumping all over the place a bit. We're very unorganized and our thoughts are kind of everywhere. We're not used to going live about this kind of subject.
No, and I promise you, we'll get better with it.
But back to the other point, we do have a few statistics, admittedly. Doing this live was somewhat short notice. So I don't claim to be very well versed in this subject matter. I'm not a political science student, never was. I can only tell you my point of view, what I see, what I know. The people I talk to on a daily basis around the world, because I'm a Twitch streamer, that's a thing. And in my everyday life, interacting with people. And a few statistics that I managed to find online, or that we managed to find online. Like I said earlier, the media would have you believe that racism is worse than ever. So we're going to share a few statistics. It's a national trend for police violence against white and black people. Specifically, these statistics are focused on the United States, unarmed suspects, or victims, if you will, of both races, from the years of 2013 to the years of 2019. And we will read you off the statistics from both sides.
Right. We just wanted to take a moment to read the victims of white race and African American race. Now, we also have statistics of other races as well. And this runs to 2019, as the Fluffy Raven says. And when we get an updated version, we definitely will include 2020, because
2020 has
been a pretty rough year thus far. And what I was saying with my earlier point is that, either side that you pick, or why does it have to be a side? I'm trying to get to.
That's a better question. Why does it have to be a side?
Why does it have to be a side? Why can't I agree with all lives matter? And
we'll get to that in a minute, because I have some piece to say about that one.
All right, so let's get into the statistics before I get a little deeper into anything else. So in 2013, unarmed victims for the white race was 64.
So let me spell that out for you. This is statistics for police killings of unarmed victims against white people in 2013. 64 people were killed while unarmed by police brutality in 2013. 64. Now, in that same year, also unarmed victims with the national race of African American descendants in 2013 was 50. 50.
Now, 64 versus 50. That doesn't sound like one race is being targeted to me. But let's carry on. Let's go to the next year, just in case you're not convinced yet. 2014, unarmed white victims was 71 deaths. 71 deaths in 2014 for unarmed white victims?
While their counterparts of African American descent in 2014, is that 64?
Yeah.
64?
Mm-hmm.
64 unarmed black victims in 2014.
Okay. 2015, unarmed white victims. 91 unarmed white victims were killed in police engagement in 2015. 91.
Okay, so in the same year, 2015, in their counterparts, 78 unarmed victims lives were taken.
So you're telling me 91 versus 78. And I have to hate that I'm using the term versus, because it's not versus. This is all a tragedy. All of it. Is it a bare tragedy? This should not happen. But 91 white deaths paired to, I like paired better. Paired is better. Paired to African American deaths being 78 in 2015. Now that's a huge difference.
2014, it is a huge difference. It is. 2014 and 15 were notably very bad years for police brutality, period. Okay, but I have to ask and question how many of these cases, in either or, were actually broadcasted nationally or internationally and brought to light.
Oh man, you almost never hear of the cop that shot the white guy.
No, almost never. It usually doesn't make it past whatever local news outlet is in their area. And sometimes it doesn't even get that far. Because it doesn't fit the narrative that the media is trying to push. And that trend has continued. Even though violence from a statistical standpoint is down over the last few years, you still only hear how African Americans are systematically being targeted by police.
Well, 91 and 78, 91 being white, 78 being African American, that definitely shoots a target in a totally different direction than what the media would have you believe.
Yeah, definitely. Now, like I said, like we said in the beginning, we're not saying that black and white is the only races being targeted or that this injustice happens to.
Well, in fact, that's the exact opposite of what we're saying. We're saying that a certain race is not being targeted.
Right.
We're saying this police brutality is happening across the board to humanity.
But let's continue with the years.
We're
in 2015. So let's go to 16.
Let's go to 16. 2016, white Americans, unarmed, met their death in 2016. 75 white unarmed Americans died in 2016.
And this statistic for African Americans might shock you. In 2016, only 40 unarmed victims were claimed. 40. That is a huge difference. Now, again, we're not talking about armed or what is the other term that they used for? Yeah, right there. Allegedly armed or unclear or vehicles. We're talking about specifically unarmed victims here between white and black in the Pacific year.
So, you got to notably take that. 75 5 white victims in 2016 paired to 40 African Americans in 2016.
Now, my question is, where's the media coverage on that? Because that's a huge leap.
I never once in 2016 can recall that much media coverage to account for 75
unarmed
deaths
by police. This is all these statistics are specifically police violence, not vigilantes, not unarmed or not off-duty cops. These are all specifically police violence while on duty, performing their obligations.
So in 2017, 52 white unarmed citizens died in 2017.
While the counterpart of African Americans was only 48.
2018, 48.
While African Americans in 2018, right, was only 28.
And in 2019, 51 white unarmed citizens died. In 2019, 51.
And while in 2019, there was only 26 unarmed victims of police brutality. Now, again, I say to you, and make sure you understand, that we're not saying either or is better or worse. It is all a tragedy. None of this should be happening. These numbers on both sides are unacceptable. Period. Unacceptable. Nobody should be gunned down or hurt or killed unarmed by police officers, the people that are supposed to be protecting them.
Right. I mean, this should not happen. These type of numbers for unarmed victims, I've watched plenty of videos where these citizens, these people with their own lives, wives, husbands, children, that died, that they left behind because these cops had a total disregard for their life. If you are unarmed, there is no reason you should die in the hands of a police officer.
There are plenty of non-lethal forces and methods that can be used. And if force that could be lethal is necessary, there are ways to use those forces to not take lives.
Yeah, without resulting in death.
For like a gun, for example, instead of shooting to kill, shoot to maim. Shoot him in the leg or the foot. You are a trained police officer. 9 times out of 10, your accuracy is fairly decent, I would assume or hope. Would you be given your station? So I don't see an issue if you know that person is unarmed. Why can't you just shoot him in the leg or the arm or the foot instead of shooting them in the head or the chest 5 or 6 times? It's uncalled for.
So, looking at these statistics that we just went over, it obviously shows, it kind of breaks that saying that African Americans are being targeted.
Right. Well, I would agree that, yes, African Americans struggle against racism still. It's out there. But I would also say that whites also still face racism. But I don't agree with people saying that police officers are systematically targeting specifically African American people in racism for violence.
I mean, the numbers don't lie. They're sitting right here in our face for the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
7 years.
7 years. That's a wide span of time that we're pulling numbers and showing you that they're being targeted just don't match up. Now, there's definitely large numbers here that shouldn't be happening. So if they're not targeting a specific race, then what is the issue here?
Well, at the moment, I also want to stop and say, first of all, I'll answer that question in a second. But I also want to stop and say that it's not all police. It's not. It's a minority group, a small percentage of police officers. There are a lot of good, awesome police officers that do what they're supposed to do and keep us safe the best that they can while trying to keep themselves safe. You gotta remember, guys, these people are human too. They have feelings. They're not robots. They have families that they're trying to get home to too. Now, if it's not racism, what do I think it is?
Yeah.
In most of the cases that I've seen, and I've looked at so far between social media, news outlets, and talking to people, most of these people have one major thing in common: their class. Most of these people aren't well known, aren't well respected, aren't what you would consider high or middle class people. For the lack of a better way of saying it, it seems to me like it's systematically targeting poor people.
Well, see, I'd have to agree with you, but I don't think I would say systematically targeting. Targeting is a strong word. That's like they're out there hunting you down just to kill you. No.
Okay, yeah. Okay, maybe that's a little strong of a word to use.
That's not what I think going on here. Now, I do see police brutality, and I have experienced police brutality in many cases where they have taken it overboard and there was no call for it. And that kind of brings us back to our childhood, where you said you had a bad one and you were never considered the upper class or handed any white privileges. Neither was I. So we were brought up in the lower class along with our brothers from the African American and sisters from the African American descent, the whites. I mean, everybody, not everybody, but people are born into certain things, whether it's a lower class, a mid class, or upper class. And depending on that, I think it vastly changes the way police treat you when they approach you, when they interact with you. They see somebody more of a lower class. I don't know, I can't say what goes through their mind, but they are vastly more cautious, more attentive, more evasive. They tend to take things a little more.
They're more jumpy.
Right, they're more almost nervous. As if they're more nervous and scared with dealing with the lower class. Right. I don't know if it's because they've had the experience that lower class people are more violent. I'm not saying that. But I have noticed, because as I got older, not saying that I changed in classes, but I definitely changed my stature.
Right.
I got a good, decent job. I got a nice vehicle. I got different things. And when I was talking to my friend the other day at work, this is an example I used with him to kind of show where I'm coming from. Now, I own a Mercedes, a 2005 Mercedes-Benz, and a 2013 Honda Civic. Now my Honda Civic needs a paint job. It's tore up. It's beat up. It's ugly, to say the least. But my Mercedes is in mint condition and it looks nice. Back when I was talking about this story, and I've been pulled over in the beat up car, right?
Right.
Pulled over several times, and it's always driver, put your hands up, come out of the vehicle with your hands up, don't make a move, walk to the back of the vehicle. They're coming up there with their guns drawn for no reason, no apparent reason. I haven't done anything wrong. They're slapping cuffs on me before they even know my last name,
Before they even told you what
before
you did
they
wrong.
even told me what I got pulled over for.
Right.
Versus being pulled over in my Mercedes. I get pulled over in my Mercedes. They casually walk up to my door. Good evening, sir. How are you doing? This is why I pulled you over. May I see your driver's license and insurance papers, please? Please.
Right. They're cordial. They're polite.
So that's two vastly different experiences that I myself have gone through with police.
Right.
So, and that's where I come with the statement that it's a class issue rather than a racial issue.
Right. I don't own two separate vehicles. I own a 2010 Chevy Cobalt. It looks half decent. It doesn't look great. You can tell it's 10 years old. You can tell it's not brand new. Like I said, you can tell it's 10 years old. It has issues taking long drives. And I frequently take trips to South Carolina, North Carolina. And I've experienced something, a lot like that. I can remember being pulled over because I was doing something very stupid in my Cobalt. I was driving 100 miles an hour in a 75.
That's crazy.
Right. When the officer came to me and pulled me over, it was much like the same. He was very rough, very rude, very forceful, very timid, and cautious. He didn't even step out of his car immediately. He used his intercom to tell me to get out of the vehicle and step to the back, put my hands on, the hood and everything, and all of this. He had me empty my pockets and everything before he ever even got out of the car, and put handcuffs on me before even telling me what was going on. Now, I knew what was going on. I knew I was in a position, and I was breaking the law. That's not what's in question here. What's in question here is the difference between how they act. And I've made this same trip in a rented car.
Right.
A rented car that was much nicer. I believe it was trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it was a Hyundai Accord or not Accord, Galant, Hyundai Galant. And I want to say this was like 2019.
Right.
2019. And as he, and same state, by the way, same state, the great state of Georgia.
Yeah, you don't speak through Georgia.
No, don't speak through Georgia. Great state of Georgia. Now, admittedly, I wasn't doing 175 this time.
Right.
No, instead I ran a red light. In the town part, I had stopped for gas and everything, and I ran a red light. But the interaction was much different. He was, like you said, calm, cool, collected, cordial. Yes, sir, no, sir. Very polite. didn't force me out of my vehicle at all or anything of that nature. You know, he simply informed me of what was going on, what I did wrong, asked me not to do it again, and sent me on my merry way. Didn't even get a ticket.
Right. And why do you think that was? Was it because you simply ran a red light and he didn't take it as that serious of an offense? Or was it because you looked like you were a higher class?
I don't know if I can say in good conscience whether or not if it was because the action I did wasn't as bad. Because going 175 is pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. While running a red light is dangerous, arguably pretty dangerous, but I would say to most people isn't as bad as going 175.
Right.
But I do know at the same time I appeared to be of a much higher class. I was in a much nicer car. I was in much nicer clothes. I was clean shaved, clean cut. I was much more presentable than what I was in the prior engagement as well. So I do have to say that some part of me would say that yes, I believe that it was because he thought that I was more of an upstanding citizen than what the previous officer did.
So that brings me to saying we already covered that we think there's definitely police brutality going out there. And I definitely agree that police brutality needs to change. There's something that needs to be done about this. Our police, our people that we trust to protect us, because they take an oath to serve and protect. You know, and a lot of our police have forgotten the serve part.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen police drive by people broken down on the side of the road, never even stop to help them. And yet they want to hold their head up high. You know, your job task is to serve and protect. I don't know how many times I've called the police out there for help and they come and run my name checking for warrants whether or not they can arrest me before even trying to help me.
It's a scary thought. It's a scary thought to think that you're calling for help in any circumstances, whether if it's life-threatening or not, but you're afraid to because you don't know how the police are going to react or interact with you.
Right. Like, you can't even call your police department nowadays. They try to throw you in jail.
Right. That's a hard choice to do. So let's say you are somebody with a warrant, out for your arrest, and you are legitimately in danger. You're stuck with that struggle. Do I try to deal with this danger on my own? Because I know that if I call for help, there's a good chance that I'm going to end up in jail anyway, which may or may not be any better than the danger I was in to start with.
Right.
So that's a scary thought.
So really people need to wake up and realize and see and stop letting the media dictate our thoughts. You know, look at this for what it really is. And it's our rights being trampled on. It's our trust being misplaced or misused. I would say misused rather than misplaced. You know, we shouldn't be frowned upon or treated different because we're of a different class. And that's what I truly believe this
or
is.
Race,
or race, gender, beliefs, sexuality, none of that should change how you are treated by your police.
By anyone.
Or by anyone in this world.
Anyone, really.
You know, but especially our police. And my biggest question is, all these unarmed victims. How many police face charges?
From my recollection, very few, if any, very few.
See,
Most of the police officers that I remember seeing the stories on didn't face charges or any kind of punishment until after a public outcry.
right. And our police should not only be facing charges because the public had to go into an uproar for that to happen. Our police should be held equal to, if not at a higher standard than a regular citizen.
Right.
Because they are trained and sworn to serve and protect us.
On that note, I kind of want to go back to the whole Black Lives Matter thing for a second. I saw a post by one of my friends from high school that kind of disturbed me. And it's a way of thinking of the public. And I'm met with this quite often because it is something I believe in. It is something I say. A lot of the times when somebody tells me Black Lives Matter, I will, and I'm probably going to get some uproar for this, but I will say, no, all lives matter. Yes, I'm that guy. I will say all lives matter. But and I'll explain that here in a second because I'm going to actually read you the post that I saw that got me thinking about it. If I can get to it real quick. Okay. And it says, for all my All Lives Matters friends, when the Boston Marathon was bombed and everybody's profile changed to the Boston Strong, nobody said all cities are strong. When the last Las Vegas shooting happened, people changed their profiles to Stand with Vegas. Nobody said stand everywhere. Have you ever seen somebody encounter a breast cancer post with what about colon cancer? But for some reason, if someone says Black Lives Matter, it turns into an all-inclusive All Lives Matter. And it goes on to say, this is not either and or proclamation. When there is a crisis, we have always rallied around a particular group, city, or cause. It does not diminish any other group, city, or cause. It just brings awareness to the support where it's needed. I couldn't disagree with that post more. With all the examples that it gives, these are specific cities that are happening in, or this is a specific event that it's happening in, or that it's a specific group of people that are being targeted. This goes back to the idea that only Black people are being targeted by this. I say all lives matter because I know that it's not only Black people being targeted by this, as our statistics that we read earlier show. It's everybody.
Right.
It's Black, it's white. To me, this movement, this Black Lives Matter movement should be all-inclusive.
It should be all-inclusive. It shouldn't just be one race. And I think maybe that's what he's saying. It's not just one race, that it's all lives matter. Yes, that's the title, but that's not what they're standing for, I would assume, or go with. But, there again, if that's not the only thing they're standing for, then why are they only uproaring or bringing a stink over Black African American cases? Why are they not having the same uproar for whites, Caucasians, or Latinos, Mexicans, the whole yard? So you're telling me you don't stand for only one race, but you're only showing me you're fighting for only one race.
I just wanted to address that because for some reason that kind of irked me when I read that post today. I don't say all lives matter to diminish the fact that black people are being discriminated against or targeted any more than I would any other race. I say it to bring awareness that it's not only black people that are having this issue; it's everybody. So
I want to say it is everybody, but even more so that we're taught to profile people. We're taught to make an immediate judgment of what you think of somebody. And police are no different. In fact, they're kind of
more so because they have
more
to do it
so because they
in a
have to
few
do it
seconds.
in a split second, right? They have to make that decision whether or not you're a danger just off of how you look. But how someone looks is not what defines their character or their actions. So, what they're making these judgments off of how to treat you is wrong.
Definitely.
You know, that brings me to the same thing. Just because I have an arm full of tattoos and I might wear my clothes a little baggier versus my co host here today, if we were side by side and something was going wrong, I would be the first accused. I would be the first suspect.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Just because of my tattoos and the clothes I wear and the way I look,
Right.
automatically, in the eyes of the law, by the judge, half of the jury, the world, just off of the way I look, I'm automatically the first suspect. Or maybe if there was an African there, maybe he would automatically be the first suspect.
Right.
You know, we have to stop judging people off of the way they look. That in itself, guys, and everybody that's viewing this, that in itself is the root problem. And I don't even know what to call it because it's not a racism.
It's profiling, period.
It's profiling.
Altogether.
But it's something more. You know, you can't tell me nothing about a person just off of the way they look. I don't care who you are or how specialist you are at profiling.
This stems further down in our society than just police officers.
Oh yes, definitely. This stems down to everybody.
Well, it stems down even down to dating apps and things of that nature. We look at an app or a profile, on virtual dating, and we immediately judge within the first 3 to 5 seconds whether or not if we want to look further into their profile.
Yeah, just off of their appearance. Swipe left.
Swipe right. Right. That's all of that has got to stop. All of it. As the old saying goes, you can't judge a book by its cover.
But we are judged every day.
Every day. On everything. Every aspect of your life. I promise you, you are judged, whether if you realize it or not, by your looks. When you go to a job interview, when you go on a first date, when you interact with the police officers, when children interact with their teachers, when you go to court, when you apply for student loans. That's something else that kind of gets me, and it kind of speaks to the opposite. There are more student loans out there for just about any other race than there are whites. I was denied 6 times for applications of grants and student financial aid because of my skin color. Because I'm not black. Because I'm not Latino or Mexican. Because I am Caucasian. They automatically assumed that I had the money necessary to go to college. Which, like I said before, in my upbringing, there was no chance in hell that my family, my parents were going to send me to college.
Right. So this assumption that's out there about all whites have privilege, that's already a bust. That's a myth. Guys, I don't know who told you or what, but that's a lie. Not all white people have privilege.
I'll tell you who has privilege. Rich people.
Rich people.
Rich people.
They don't know what it is to struggle.
Not at all.
They don't know what it is to decide whether or not you eat dinner tonight or pay your power bill tomorrow. We do.
And I know this doesn't have a whole lot to do with a lot, but I do want to take a moment to point out that all three founders of the Black Lives Matter movement are millionaires.
Millionaires.
By the way, I looked up their net worth before the show. All of them range between 1 and 5 million. They're all well-known, published authors. Three of them went to college. Yes, I'm sure they probably had a hard life growing up. I don't know them. I'm sure that they're doing this because they're tired of seeing what they see. But I know that there's no way that they can fully understand unless their childhood was like ours, can fully understand.
Or
what's going
just like
on.
the lower class.
Right.
You know? Not just ours, mine or yours, but the lower class in general and what they have to deal with.
Now, like I said, I don't know what their struggles growing up were. I didn't look that deep into their past. Only the present. So.
But until the day we stop looking at somebody and making an assumption off of how they look, this issue will never be solved.
Oh no, you can go through another civil war if you want. And sure, it might fix the problem for another generation or two. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be there. It's still going to happen. It might take another 100 years, but it's still going to happen. At the end of the day, there's only really one way to fix this. It's not a civil war. It's not going back and forth about Black Lives Matter. And this is, of course, my humble opinion. But the only way you're going to fix this is by teaching the next generation. Starting it out at home. Racism in any fashion, whether if it's towards class or skin color, sexuality, what have you, isn't inherited. It's not natural. It's not bred into us by our genetics.
Right.
It's taught to us by our parents and those around us as we grow up. So the only way, in my opinion, like I said, my humble opinion, is to change any of this. It's not to riot in the streets. It's not to protest.
Or burn your own cities
Or
to
burn
the ground.
cities to the ground.
Why would you do that?
That only perpetuates the cycle. And I'll get to that in a second. But the only way to fix this is good up home bringing. Teach your children not to judge people based on what they see. Teach them to judge people based on their actions, how they actually interact with you. Teach them to love people. Teach them to help people. Teach them that when they see somebody struggling on the side of the road and they can, help them.
Have compassion. Feel something.
And that, to me, that's the only way it's going to change. And it's not going to change overnight. And it might not even change in the first generation that you do it. It'll probably take 2 or 3 generations, if not more. But on top of that, and that's not the only way, and that's not the only thing you have to do either. You have to not forget it. I don't want to say forget it because that's the wrong way to say it. But don't shove it down people's throats.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is your excuse for everything that happens to you can't be, oh, he's a racist.
Right. Maybe he's just an asshole. Maybe it's got nothing to do with your skin or your money. Maybe he's just a jackass. Or maybe he just had a bad day.
There's bad cops out there. There's good cops out there. But until these bad cops are held accountable for their actions and what they do at a higher standard than a regular citizen, these numbers, these statistics, the police brutality, they're getting away with the things that they're doing, it's just going to keep happening. And till we shine a light on the entire problem, it's just going to keep happening. We can't say it's one race. We can't say it's the other race. I can say it's police brutality against all races. And these police that are doing this, just like the criminals they put behind bars, are criminals and should be treated as such.
Wholeheartedly agree. I know as a police officer, if I was a police officer, I don't care what it is. If I was there as a police officer when George Floyd was killed, the three that stood there and did nothing are horrible. They're just as bad as the other guy that was on him. Like I said, if I was a police officer, my first reaction would have been to tackle the other police officer, honestly, in an attempt to save his life. And I'd have slapped cuffs on him right then and there. That's the only way that should have went down.
Right.
The moment that he became unresponsive, the police should have stopped going from arrest mode. They should have went into first responder mode.
Right.
Because I don't know how many people out there understand or know, but police officers, as part of their training to become on the force, are trained first responders. They know basic medical attentiveness.
Right.
The moment George Floyd became unresponsive, any one of the 4 officers that were there should have checked to see if he was breathing. Should have checked to see if he hurt himself, hit his head, or whatever else may have happened.
Especially after he was cuffed.
Right? And there was definitely no reason to keep pressure on him 4 or 5 minutes or 9 minutes, however long it was, after he became unresponsive.
No, absolutely.
Or even cuffed, for that matter.
And every single one of them are murderers.
Yes. Every single one of them, all 4 of them, in my eyes, are complete murderers. Because one did it, and the other 3 did nothing. I want to share a quote, and I can't remember who it's by. Forgive me, I'm sorry. But I heard once, all it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. Now, I don't know the stories of these 3 other officers that were just standing there. I don't know, their characteristics, what they were, good or bad. But I know that they did nothing. Good or bad, yeah. They let evil prevail.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes. Out of all of these people that were videotaping or recording this going on, nobody else decided to step in to the police? But you want to do it now in riots? Yes, you probably would have ended up in the same situation, probably got hurt, maybe even killed. But that's the right thing to do. Honestly.
I don't know if you can tell regular citizens to step in on the police.
I'm not going to say that you should. I'm saying that you should evaluate the situation, and if you have the capability to do something.
But now, definitely, maybe if it ain't a police, but definitely if you see people breaking into a store. I'm
going to say, even if it is the police, I'm not saying go physically attack tackle the police or anything. Don't put yourself in harm's way. But call 911. Tell them. Tell another dispatcher. Get somebody higher up, is what I'm saying. There are other ways. Don't just sit there and idly record the man dying, is what I'm saying. Call 911. Let them know that, hey, you got 4 officers out here being extremely aggressive. Or potentially killing somebody. Well, at the time, if you're sitting there witnessing it, you don't know if he's dead or not. You're not sitting right there. But tell them that, you have officers on scene that are being obviously too forceful.
Right.
That is the very least, in my opinion, that you can do.
Yeah.
Like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying go out there and attack the police or anything. But there are other methods that you could try to use to stop them. Yes, in the video, I heard people trying to yell at them, and tell them to stop. And I commend that because that may have gotten their attention. Obviously, in this particular incident, it didn't. But that might have been a deciding factor in another case. So, thanks for that. But for anybody that was just standing there watching, in my opinion, you're just as bad. No action is an action.
That's true. That's definitely true.
Taking no action, deciding to do nothing, is an action in itself. And it's one that you have to live with if something happens.
Yeah. It definitely is.
I know I, as a person, could not have stood right there and watched that, let alone record it.
No, but I don't know what you could have done it being police. And that's the whole thing.
That's the whole problem, right?
Because you should never be put in that position
to risk endangering yourself to save somebody else from people that are supposed to be protecting you.
From an officer, from somebody who's supposed to put your life before theirs. Their job is to serve and protect you, me, everyone. And they have failed to do this. Many of them. But rioting and defunding the police that uphold your law and order, because there are good police out there that do their job, that's just idiocy. That's just retarded.
Here's what that does. If you have a decent neighborhood and you go through and you riot and you loot and you destroy things and you burn things down, people are going to stop coming to that neighborhood, to that area. Stores are going to leave. They're going to move away. Teachers that teach your children are going to leave. The police that, you trust to protect you are going to leave. Truck drivers that bring you the supplies that your stores in that area need are going to stop coming because it's too dangerous for them. And what that does is that continuously puts you in a perpetual cycle to where, okay, now you're back in the same spot where you grew up in. You can't find a job, poor education, and now your child is in the same situation that you were in and can't do any better because the neighborhood or community he's in is
non-existent,
not fit.
Other than the people living there?
So it turns around and makes them go into the same lifestyle that you're stuck in. And this keeps happening and happening over and over and over. So the cycle's never broken.
Right.
So, you can't just go destroying shit.
No, no, you can't. I mean, you got to take pride in your cities. You got to take pride in your stores, your local stores that's funding money into your city and your town. All that makes a difference in what's around you, the people you have around you, the influences in your everyday life, your life as a whole,
Right.
as a stature, what kind of food you're going to go eat, what kind of entertainment you have, and what kind of schools, as you pointed out, what type of level of schooling are you providing for your children. You can't break down into the store, shoot the store clerk, rob it, burn down buildings, burn down the police car. For one, police is just going to get more, so you can burn them all you want. It's not going to really do anything besides cost us more money, because
By the way,
we're the
we pay for
taxpayers
that.
who pay.
And by we, I mean the general public.
Yeah, we're
By
the
the way.
taxpayers who pay for every car that the police drive. So you're not hurting them, you're hurting us. How you get to the police? How do you make change of this magnitude? I think, for one, it's shining a light on the true problem. And that's why the media has you so fixated on it being a racist issue rather than a class issue. Because if you're focused on one over here, you're not truly seeing what's going on over here.
Yeah. No, the media uses this tactic all the time. They'll publish some other event or story to distract you from other events or stories that goes on.
Like before Floyd's untimely massacre.
Death. I won't say massacre.
That was a massacre. That shouldn't have. That was just.
Anyway, English language. Not here to debate English language.
But
yeah.
Shit. What was I saying? Now that you done distracted me, got me off topic.
I didn't have the brain fart. You did.
Oh, media. Oh, since all of that happened, how much have you even heard about the coronavirus?
Not nearly as much as you use. Better yet, how many of you know about the border scrimmage that, or not border scrimmage, but scrimmage in general, that China and Saudi Arabia just had? Yeah.
No one.
Yeah. You didn't even know about that, did you?
No.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's not on the news.
Well, it is, but it's not. It's not nearly.
Not on your TV screen.
Let's see if I can find it real quick.
Or how, since restrictions have been cleared and we're able to go out into the public again, as long as we maintain 6 feet, we haven't heard anything over the news stream. But yet it has been a steady incline in positive COVID-19 cases.
Major incline. Let's see. I'm trying to find that post again, which isn't going to go well because I only have 3%.
That's fine. But anyway.
Well, anyway, I don't remember the particular details, but I want to say it was China and Saudi Arabia had a scrimmage where that most people don't even know about.
So what I want to say, and what I want everyone to take from this the most, is one, educate yourselves.
Do your own due diligence research.
Stop looking at what the news is feeding you.
And don't mindlessly share everything you see on social media.
And let's start shining a light on the true issue at hand, whether it's from the LGBTQ community to African Americans to white to any of that nature. Judging a person off of how they look is wrong. Just purely wrong. Much less the people who are sworn to serve and protect us, judging us off of how we look, whether we're white, black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Dominican, all of the others. Until we shine a light on that, and that somebody with more or less money is no better than the next, no matter how high you have your nose up here, you still put your pants on the same way I do.
Your coffin's still going 6 feet under at the end of the day.
There's no difference between somebody with more money or less, except they can afford more shit. Stop treating them, the ones without money, like they're nothing, like their lives don't matter, when everyone's lives matter. What if you're broke, poor, or of any other race?
Couldn't agree more. My final thought, honestly, is people need to quit being so selfish. Be compassionate, be considerate, understand that you never know what that next person to you that you talk to might be going through. Your next interaction with that person could be the interaction that either saves their life or ends it. You never know. So treat people like you would want to be treated. I know that sounds cliche, but honestly, do it. If you are not sure, just be nice.
If you want to make a difference, be the difference you want to make.
By your actions. By your actions. Not by your words. Because at the end of the day, your words don't mean shit if you don't back it up by your actions. And that's why I say I can't stand idly by when something happens. By your actions. Y'all don't know me from Tom, Dick, and Harry. Most of y'all have never heard of me or never been in my stream. And that's fine. But I'm taking an action by recording this video or this live and talking to my co-host here and trying to bring awareness to what I think. Now, like I said, this is my opinion. What I think is really going on. Because I don't agree with the media. I don't agree with the government. I don't agree with everybody that's going around saying that this is systematic racism.
Right.
I just don't. So I'm one voice and I'm trying to make it heard.
Definitely. So thank you for everyone that attended tonight. If you haven't, please come back and visit. Also hit the follow button if you never followed me before. That we do a lot of live streams and tarot card readings and different things of that nature. We just took a kind of side note today to sit down and really talk about some issues that is bothering us. You know, if we want brutality to stop, first you have to rid yourself of the hate. And that's not just your police, that has to be rooted in everyone. And that's it, guys.
I think everybody should take a minute when they can and listen to a song. Black Eyed Peas, Where's the Love?
Yeah.
because I think that's more relevant now than it ever has been.
Where's the love? Definitely. All right. Good night.